welcome back. I hope you've had a chance to try some of the recipes that I've posted, and I hope you've enjoyed them. By now you can tell that beans play kind of a central part in our diet. We make all different kinds, different varieties. We make black beans, red beans, white beans, split pea, lentil. So today I'm going to show you how to make a very basic black bean soup, I guess you could call it. We usually serve our beans over white rice, but many of them can be enjoyed as a soup in a bowl if you're trying to cut back on your starches a little bit. So we'll get started on today's black bean soup. I hope you will try it, and if you do, let me know if you enjoyed it. We're going to begin by showing you the ingredients we'll be using for this recipe. First, we have our dried black beans. We're going to use 2 cups of black beans. We're going to chop up green pepper. I have a beautiful large onion. If your onions are smaller, I would suggest you use 2 of those. And we're going to use about 6 cloves of fresh garlic if they're large cloves. If they're small, go ahead and add 8. It sounds like a lot, but when you cook them, the flavor becomes very mellow. We'll add 1/8 of a teaspoon of cumin, a little tiny piece of bay leaf. We'll start with 2 teaspoons of salt, and we'll adjust this at the end. We're going to add a little bit of sugar, but this also comes in at the end once the beans are completely cooked. Olive oil, about 1/4 cup, and a little bit of apple cider vinegar. That will come in a little bit later as well. Okay, so I've measured 2 cups of the dry black beans and I've rinsed them well. We're going to put this in the pot that we'll be using. In today's case, I'm going to use an InstaPot, but you can, of course, use a traditional pressure cooker on top of your stove as well. And to these black beans, I'm going to add about 4 cups of cold water. Okay, 4 cups of cold water, and then we'll start to cook this for about 30 minutes with some of our olive oil. So I'm going to go ahead and I would say I'll put in about 1/4 cup of that olive oil now. We'll put this in our InstaPot and we'll set the timer for 30 minutes on high. Pressure cook on high for 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and check on them to make sure that they've become tender, and then we'll add our onions and peppers and all of our seasonings. Okay, so after 30 minutes, I opened the InstaPot and I checked the beans, and they were actually still a little bit hard. So I put them back on the pressure cooker for 10 more minutes. And I'll show you. Let me fish one little bean out. You could see I'm taking out a bean, and it's perfectly, you see, perfectly tender. And that's what we want. Remember that when we made our rice and beans mixed together, we wanted the beans to be soft but not mushy. In this case, they can be mushy and they're perfectly delicious that way. So what we're going to do next is we're going to add our vegetables. Now, you may have heard or seen that many people make what we call a sofrito. They saute the onions and the peppers with the olive oil in a frying pan first, and then they add them to the beans. I like to keep things as simple as possible, and while sometimes making a sofrito is absolutely essential, I find that with the beans, once we put them in the pot, we're going to cook them for another 10 minutes, 15 minutes or so, and those flavors are just going to be absorbed by the beans, and they will be absolutely delicious, even skipping that one step. At the beginning, I said, with regard to the green pepper, I said we would chop it up. You can chop it up, but sometimes you've heard me say I like to actually fish out the green peppers when the cooking is finished. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I took half of a green pepper, chopped it up into 3 large pieces, and we'll put that directly into our beans, just like that. And then here is my onion. This is a regular yellow onion. You could use a sweet onion. There's a lot of things you can do, and at the end you will taste it and see if it's to your liking. But this is a yellow onion, a large one, and we're going to put that right into our beans as well. We're just going to go right down the line. I crushed our garlic, so this is 6 large cloves of garlic. You can do 6 to 8 pieces of that, nice and chopped up. Our cumin, our bay leaf, our salt, and the only thing we're going to hold off on until the beans are completely finished will be the sugar and the apple cider vinegar. So I'm going to mix this all together. And I'm going to show you that in order to cook them a little bit longer, I'm going to add an additional, maybe just about half a cup of water. You see, it needs a little more liquid in there. So we'll do half a cup to 3/4 of a cup. Let's see what it looks like. Okay. All right, I think that looks a little bit better. And we'll cook this now on pressure. We'll put it back on. You could do low pressure for about 10 to 15 more minutes. So I've allowed the beans to cook with our vegetables and our seasonings for an additional 10 minutes. And it's quite nice. It's perfectly cooked. It has the right amount of water. Let me let you take a peek into the pot. Let's see. Okay. Very nice. Now what we're going to do is fish out that little piece of green pepper, or the couple of pieces of green pepper. I just happen to not love leaving them in there, so I'm going to take those out. See if I can find it. Now at this point, I would suggest that you have a little taste of that liquid and check it for salt, because what we're going to add next is our vinegar and a little bit of sugar. The vinegar almost enhances the saltiness of the soup. So if your soup is already a little over salted, I would leave the vinegar out, but it does add a nice little kick to your beans. I've tasted mine. They seem perfectly salted, but the vinegar is just going to add an extra depth of flavor. I'm going to put one tablespoon of the vinegar, apple cider vinegar, and these beans need a tiny bit of sugar. It just makes everything taste better. So I put 1 teaspoon of sugar to the beans. And to finish them off, I like to add a tiny bit of olive oil that will just not be cooked. It will just stay right in the finished beans and just adds a lovely flavor to them. So our beans are nice and cooked, and they will be delicious served with white rice, or just grab a nice big bowl and serve yourself some of these beans. And you know, you could also eat them as an addition to your Mexican meal by refrying a little bit in a saucepan or in a skillet. You would put some of these black beans, let them cook down a little bit more, add a little bit of chopped red onions and a little cheese, and that is also a very tasty addition to another dish. Tomorrow, maybe we could do Mexican tomorrow. Anyway, I hope that you will try this out. I hope that you enjoy it. If you do, please let me know. And I'll be making some white beans next with ropa vieja, old clothes, which is another very traditional Cuban meal. So stay tuned and keep checking back for more recipes. Thank you. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.